Yeah.
But one thing that was really cool, and in the arena, my desk was right next to the window. So, like, for example, Billie Eilish was playing a concert there, and she would like rehearse during the week. I would just be like watching her rehearse while I'm working, just looking through the window. It was
That is
so
sick.
cool.
That is awesome. That's awesome.
This is the XR Motion Podcast with your hosts, Michael Steinberg and Andrew Hogue.
So here we go. All right, welcome to the XR Motion Podcast, where we go over everything AR, VR, 3D, metaverse. That's kind of getting back. You name it, we go over it. Today we have a very special guest, which I know we're going to be laughing a lot this episode. I'm very excited for it. But before we introduce her, we got to introduce the world's greatest host, Andrew. Andrew, how you doing, bud?
Good, man. Agreed. I'm very excited for today's episode. I feel like our little trio goes back to Camp MoGraph this year. We had a lot of laughs. I have a feeling we will be kind of repeating that on today's episode.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I'm very excited. And with that being said, introducing the amazing Steph Hallett. How's it going?
It's going good. I'm so excited to be talking shit with you guys again.
Yeah, I'm amped for the episode. Yeah. And coming all the way from Miami, is that correct?
That's correct. All the way down south, as further down as you can go.
Love it, love it. Well, so for anybody who doesn't know who you are, what you do, can you just give us a little bit of an introduction?
I am a full-time motion designer at Dash, and a film lover, a video game player, fangirl motion person. That's about it.
Nice. And I know, but for anybody listening, what programs do you primarily use?
I'm at home when I open After Effects. I'm so comfortable in After Effects, but I know Illustrator, Photoshop. My main 3D was Cinema 4D. I'm like trying to dip my toes into Blender. What else? What other programs? I think that's about it.
Getting into kind of some of your background here, what kind of like history did you have? Did you go to school for some of your work, or was this something where you did YouTube University?
Definitely part YouTube University, but I went to the Art Institute in Miami, like that chain of colleges that went bankrupt. That was my school. And I went for digital filmmaking because I always thought I've always loved movies and stuff. I actually did acting for like 12 years of my life because loved movies. Then I was like, never mind. I like watching DVD behind the scenes. So then I was like, oh, okay, I want to go to film school. And then I went to film school and I was like, production is miserable. I hate it. Still love movies, hate this. And then I had a class in Photoshop. And my teacher was like, hey, have you thought about animation? And I was like, no. And then I started switching out some of my classes with like compositing, animation, motion graphics. And because my school was like so chill and a little bit of a joke, I ended up graduating instead of with a short film. I just graduated with a motion design reel. And they were like, that's fine. We'll pass you. You're good.
So what was the transition like? So you're at school, you graduate with a motion graphics reel and a film class. Was that the reel you used to get jobs, or was it something where connections from the industry and being at school kind of led you along your path?
So I had to do an internship at the that was another thing during college. I had to do an internship, and I did an internship as an animator at a TV station that was here in Miami called Fusion. It was owned by Univision. So it counted as a credit or whatever. And once I finished and I graduated, I told my boss, I was like, all right, I'm officially graduated. And they were like, all right, you want to be full time? So I was like, okay. So was full time there, which was a really, really cool experience because it was this channel that was kind of trying to be like Vice, like very like progressive, experimental, trying to do like cool topics. It didn't really have that much of an identity yet. So they gave the animators or the motion design people a lot of like freedom to experiment. Like, oh, we're gonna do this show called Come Here and Say That, and we want it to be like maybe like handcrafted style, so it'll be like stop motion. So then we would like get in the studio and like actually film stop motion stuff. And then it was like another one for like something to do with politics, and they wanted to be like this crazy like 3D thing, and like they would let us like pitch ideas on how to look. So it was cool to be working for a TV station that didn't already have like its branding and these guidelines that we had to stick to, because it kind of gave me the opportunity to learn all these different types of design and all these different programs right away in my first job. And also to be able to like pitch design stuff and pitch ideas as a motion designer at a broadcast place. Like it was just a really perfect first job experience. And also in the broadcast, because when you say broadcast, it already sounds boring. You're like, oh, your first job was in broadcast, but it like wasn't like that. It was really, really cool and artistic there. All the staff were really young, all the producers were super cool. So yeah, it was a great, oh, and then on top of that, the entire crew that was hired there, I feel like my personality didn't come out until my first job, because it was like everyone there was like a motion designer. Everyone there was obsessed with films. Everyone there was like a computer person, video games. They're the ones who showed me Rick and Morty. There's the ones who showed me anime. Yeah. So it's, aside from it just being like my first job experience, it was like just such a pivotal moment of like coming into my own. But I feel like that's also like part of like the community we have in our industry is we like all speak each other's language and stuff. So really great first job experience. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Is that the same with you guys? Once you guys got into like a job where it was like a crew of motion designers, you kind of got that same feeling?
Oh, absolutely.
I think it's like, yeah, like once you get a crew of creatives of, I mean, not just motion designers, but, you know, I think about like graphic designers I've worked with, web designers, UX, UI people. There is like a common thread, you know, there's a through point for all of it. But yeah, 100%. And like, that's, you know, probably a really good piece of advice for people that are getting started in this industry. It's like, you think about a dream job and like, you know, it's very easy when you're young to be like, I'm going to pick the top 5 studios that I want to go and work at. But, you know, beyond that, it's like there's a much broader world out there. And I think that if you measure your value as a designer or creative, you know, based on the studio that you work at, just by their reputation alone, you're kind of missing so much more, which is like, if you like the people you work with, if you like the projects you're working on, you know, you were just saying too, like, that's amazing that you were, you know, to be able to pitch things as a motion designer is not always, you know, motion designers are usually not doing the pitching. Motion designers get pulled in after key art is locked and it's like, here are the files, make a move. So yeah, I mean, I 100% agree. I think that's such an amazing experience that you were able to have, especially for your first job. That's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, it was awesome. And then after that, when I went to Miami Heat, I went to a production studio right in between for a little bit, and then I went to Miami Heat, and I got lucky there again because out of all like the NBA teams, I think now it's more popular that people are focusing on their design and animation a little bit more, all the teams. But at the time, like I think it was just like the Raptors and Miami Heat that kind of had cool motion, and Miami Heat specifically, like their creative department is very progressive in the sense that like they're like willing to like experiment with stuff. They're open to new ideas. They're not, because some teams on the NBA could be very like, they've just been established for so long. They already have like their structures. They go by the guidelines and stuff. And our creative department, the head of our creative department, he is a super cool guy. He even invented, he's a art director, but so you know how there's merchandise for all the teams, the NBA gear, you go to miamiheat.com, you buy the jersey, you buy the shirts, whatever. But he came up with like the idea to have a separate clothing line that's called Culture. Wait, it's called Heat Culture or something. Oh my God, I'm forgetting now. I'm not a big sports person. I was at the time. Court Culture. There we go. Oh, that was going to kill me.
Nice.
Okay, it's called Court Culture. And he kind of like came up with this idea to just have a clothing brand on the side for the team that was kind of like the elevated, more artistic clothing. So if you go, you could either get the generic gear or you can go to Court Culture, the brand, the sub brand. And it was like all these really, really cool designs for clothing and stuff. So we already had him, that kind of person, at the head of the department. So they gave motion design a bunch of freedom to like experiment. They were like, okay, all the city edition stuff, like for us, it was like vice versa and stuff. They were like, all right, let's come up with this whole new concept. What are you guys thinking? And we would actually like even be there when they were shooting with the players, because they have a media day where they shoot all the footage for like the season to do the intros, the headshots, and all that stuff. They would have like I was there with like the athletes, and they would have us involved even at that point. Yeah, filming
Wow.
So you're like art directing, VFX supervising, motion designing. I mean, that's amazing. It's, you kind of jumped the question here, because I was going to ask. I mean, one of the things that I think stands out in your portfolio, and I think it's even more incredible that you are from, living in Miami, being there, being a part of the city and its culture. I kind of wanted to ask just how you pivoted from where you were to getting into Miami Heat, and like also just what was your favorite part about working with Miami Heat, which I feel like you just kind of touched on. So obviously don't retell the whole story again, but.
So we have this art director. No, I'm kidding. It was just really cool to be able to have the freedom. And I guess we just got lucky that Miami's team happened to be this really, really cool creative. But the one thing I really liked the most, because I feel like in our industry, you don't get it that much, was now when I told people what I did, I didn't have to explain too much, and B, once I mentioned Miami Heat, they were like, whoa, you work for Miami Heat? So usually I'm like, oh, I work for like an agency. I do animations, but it's not Pixar. It's more like whatever. And it's like, this time I was just like, oh, I do animations for Miami Heat. What? I'm like, yeah. So like the headshots and stuff like that. And like, It was just really, really cool to see people get really excited about when I told them what I did. When usually
that's so
not
funny.
the
I
case.
feel like
It's a bit of a flex, not gonna lie. A little bit of a flex.
Definitely a flex. I also, it's funny you mentioned like the sports thing, because whenever, like, even my parents still, they're like, I don't really know what you do. And I'm like, okay, just like when you're watching ESPN and you see like, the like rotating shots of the players and they're just doing this thing, like that's motion design, right? Like, you're at a stadium and you're watching the stuff that's being projected on the screens, or like, all, it's a very easy way to get people on board with like, oh, okay, so that's like, when you hear animation, like to your point, it's like people immediately assume Pixar or like, whatever the lowest common denominator might be. But yeah, the sports thing is always a really great way to sort of like get people familiar and comfortable with talking about motion graphics.
Yeah. Yeah. And they would just think it's like the coolest thing ever. I mean, I thought it was cool for sure, but like, I'm not a sports person at all. I became one by association, of course, and I cared at the time. But yeah, that was definitely cool. People knowing what I did a lot more and being really excited about what I did.
Nice. Did you ever get to go on the court and shoot a basket?
No, but I'm sure if I would have like wanted to, I could have. But one thing that was really cool, and this also was like just at the time. So in the arena, there's like a bunch of different floors. Obviously, there's like the bowl in the middle, but then there's like a whole little section that has the cubicles, which is like, where people work 9 to 5, all the teams, sales, creative, et cetera, et cetera. But not coincidentally, but by chance, our office was right next to engineering, which it's like if you sit in the bowl and you're watching a game and you look all the way to the right corner, you see like 2 glass windows. And those are the people who are like doing like the live show stuff that they have to like see the game. So one window was engineering, that they do all the live show stuff. And then the second window was like this tiny, dark, awesome room that was just for motion design. And it was 7 of us. And we got to be in that office. Now they actually moved them down to the cubicles. But at the time, like at my desk was right next to the window. So like when when artists would be like, for example, Billie Eilish was like playing a concert there and she would like rehearse during the week, I would just be like watching her rehearse while I'm working, just looking through the window. It was so cool.
That is awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. Wow, love that. Yeah, my internship, funny enough, was with the Charlotte Hornets. So I had
What
a
the
little
you
bit.
guys? I was Washington Wizards. What the fuck? This is
Wait,
crazy.
were you really?
Yeah, dude. Like I was like 17, Washington Wizards. I did like it's wild.
Oh, that's so funny. So we've all
Yeah.
worked at the
Yeah.
NBA.
And let me tell you, I have never
How funny
felt
is
like
that?
a smaller human being than like, like I also I was like the guy running the cable to like the live cam on the court. So it's just like me at like 5'7" and everyone out there is like 6'5", like literally towering over, like they could squash me, like it was it was a humbling experience in a lot of ways. But yeah, I mean, also started in sports. It's kind of it's a really interesting, it's always been, they've always needed graphics and motion design and broadcast packages and all that stuff. So I think it's a great place to start and cut your teeth a little bit.
Yeah, and to mix both of your guys' little stories, a little funny one about being in the NBA at the Hornets. So yeah, guys can squash you, but also, and like you said, Steph, you just look over and Billie Eilish is playing. Well, you don't always know what's happening in an arena, right? At least I didn't. I was just interning. I was really hungover one day, and I was walking in there's like the outer circle, you know what I mean? It's kind of like a big concrete outer circle where they can have
Yeah.
cars and stuff in the arena. So I'm really hungover, and my office was kind of right where the tunnel where the players run out, and I had like a door. Anyway, so I'm in the cement tunnel walking, and all of a sudden it kind of feels like an earthquake, just doom, 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 and then it kind of feels like a stampede. I hear someone scream, "Run! Get out of the way!" I turn around. There's like 3 elephants charging at me in a tunnel. And so I just start
the circus.
Yeah. So I start sprinting, and yeah, apparently I guess the circus was in town.
Oh
and
my God, dude.
the guy catches up to me, throws me against the wall, and then the elephants, they just all come, and he's like, "Don't look at them." I was like, "Oh." And he's like, "I'm just kidding. They're totally nice. They wouldn't hurt you."
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah. But good stuff. Working on a sports team, they're fun. So speaking of all this fun stuff, so what made you eventually say, Miami Heat, I've had enough? The Miami Heat flame has burnt out. That was bad analogy. But yeah. So what had you actually wind up looking for a new job or transitioning to your next adventure?
So, I mean, like we were saying, like all the cool and exciting things of working in the arena, and also the teams were awesome. But, and I'm sure you guys kind of experienced this too. There was definitely like a ceiling. There was only like so far up you can go. So, but on top of that, aside from that, it was also, so I started the year, and you guys might, I mean, are you guys sports people?
Maybe.
No,
I mean, I'm not gonna say.
Mikey, I would say Mikey more of anyone on this call right now is definitely a sports person. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry. No, I don't actually
was,
watch the Yankees, funny enough.
but it was the year that it was Dwayne Wade's last year. I don't know if you guys, maybe 2018, 2019,
Yeah.
but I started there, and then like a while passed, and then I'll never forget, we got the announcement like, oh, the NBA's been suspended because of this virus. Boom, COVID.
Wow. Right.
Yeah. And then we did the bubble. That was crazy, doing graphics for like a whole new stadium, the one in Orlando. But anyway, we were working from home. And so all the glamour of like the arena stuff was like obviously like faded. And I think
Billie Eilish isn't coming over.
I am not seeing Billie Eilish, I kind of just like started thinking more, and I was like, yeah, and up until what point am I going to be here if I know I can't really like move up? And also my goal was always to work at an animation studio, because up until then I had been like animation department. I was animation department at a TV station. I was the animation department at a production studio, animation department at a, NBA team. So it's like, I just want to work at an animation studio. But for the time being, I decided to just go freelance for like 2 years, because I had enough. I was always moonlighting. Like most of my career, I would moonlight at night. And I was like, I feel safe enough that I have like clients to go full time. And so I did that for about 2 years, but I feel like personally me, like at least at the time, I just didn't have the hustle to want to do like the marketing and the admin side of it. And I was like, reading a freelance manifesto. I was like watching all the tutorials, like all the articles, and I was just like, this is just not, I don't want to do this right now. I want to focus completely on creative. I want to watch animation tutorials. I want to like learn programs. And so I kind of started looking for something, but not too, I wasn't like looking too hard. And then coincidentally, one day I just see Dash post like, "Oh, we're hiring." And it was like, I feel like it's the first time that I've actually like gone out of my way to look for it or to try to get a job. Before that, it was kind of opportunities coming to me. And this was the first time I was like, all right, I'm going to go chase something. And so I saw they posted on their Instagram and it was a studio that I followed. And I was like, let me just I remember talking about this with my therapist, actually. We were just like in our session one day and I was like, one of my favorite animation studios just posted this. Like, I'm thinking about applying, but no, no. And she was like, do it, whatever. And they had said in there, and also the job posting that they put, like all the benefits and like the way they describe their ethos and like how they treat employees, how their culture is. I was like, this sounds like my dream job. And they had said, like, send your resume, send a link to your portfolio, and it's like in a cover letter, but optional if you do a video, it's like brownie points or whatever. So I was like, all right, I'll shoot a video. It took me a month to shoot it. Not because
Were they still hiring?
so I was like, my perfectionism really gets to me sometimes. I'm always like working on it, trying to control it, but I like had written a script, an outline or whatever. I had kept doing like setups with like the little tripod. I would put lights in the back and all this stuff. And I kept trying to do it and I kept fumbling it and I hated it. And then all of a sudden I see them post like, oh, this is the last week. We've gotten a lot of applications and we're going to be closing whatever Friday. And my therapist I would even talk about it with my therapist. She's like, did you send it? I'm like, not yet. It's not perfect. Whatever. Last minute, like on the Thursday, I'm like, just, you know what? Stream of consciousness, just record yourself talking, just do it. Don't edit it. Nothing. I did that. I sent it on the Friday. And Mac, the owner of one of the part owners of Dash, tells me, and he always tells this story too, about how he was literally like closing out his email and he was like, all right, we're not accepting any more. And the last email that he saw was mine. And he was like, you know what? I'm just going to open up one more. And then he was like, damn, this is, I would love to talk to this artist, all this stuff. And because I was so late, it was 3 rounds of interviews. It was like, the first one was like 15 minutes. Yeah, it was like 15 minutes, like little introduction, get to know the person. Then it was like a more in-depth one after they narrowed it down to like, I don't know, maybe 30 people. And then to the last 4 people, it was like a really in-depth interview with both of the owners. And I was so late that they were like, we've already been interviewing people for the first round, but you could just skip it because, your video was basically like a 15-minute interview. So I just went straight into the second round of interviews and here I am.
It's because you had all that practice, you thought you were scrapping every version that you put together, but it was all leading up to that moment. That's an amazing story. I haven't heard that. That's incredible.
Yeah.
That is interesting too. I mean, I was saying this recently that I feel like I want to, on my website, call it the David Ariev interview or reel, but just kind of on the reel, just kind of have a video describing my work, my history, my past, because that's kind of is the first interview. It's knowing who I am as a person. You get to see what I like. And anyway, that's funny that you said that.
Yeah.
But lines up perfectly.
Well, when I know this was kind of one of the topics you wanted to talk about, but when I recently went and spoke at Ringling, I kind of ended up doing a talk on like career and all this stuff. And one of the things I mentioned was the same story I just told you, but I was saying how whenever you get the opportunity to send in, instead of sending like a cover letter, to just send like a 5-minute video cover letter, because it gets them to like, I don't know, you're definitely going to be more memorable since they already see a personality, a face, they already get a gist of who you are. It kind of like breaks the ice even further. And, I feel like if you're just yourself and you got a, great personality, you're cool people, you're a cool creative artist, and you're willing to put yourself out there in this vulnerable place of sending them a video, I just feel like it goes a long way. I feel like it made a
Yeah,
really big
absolutely.
difference for me. Yeah.
I feel like you can even extrapolate that out to like, I think so many people, like, myself included, it's like, it's very hard right now when you're in this sort of like sea of social media and everyone is on it. And like, how do you differentiate yourself? And, you're constantly playing the numbers game of like, oh, someone's doing better, that someone made something that got all these views or whatever. It's like having a social presence, I think, should be less about that aspect of it and more about like, at the very least, if you apply for a job and someone goes and checks out the stuff that you've, put on the internet, and if it's you and it's your personality and it's you talking about things and sharing your excitement and like literally conversations like these, that carries so much weight in a way that I think is increasingly more important, especially as we like move into this, whatever this next, we're a very young industry, like whatever the next phase of motion design and animation looks like. I think it's pretty obvious that, like, to your point, having that personal touch and that personal sort of like engagement, it doesn't need to reach millions of people by any means. It just needs to be you, and it just needs to exist. And, I love that Dash, it's actually, having been at Dash Bash, I feel like it's so on brand for them to be like, yeah, we're going to take video interviews, that was like, what you said, it was 2018, 2019. Like, I guess we see maybe more of that now, but like, that is such a great way to, if you're going to be working with someone in the weeds on creative work all the time, you want to know what this person's about. You can't just look at a reel. You can't just say that person does the best technical work and go from there. So yeah, I think that's such a very important point.
Yeah.
Before I ask questions about your work at Dash Bash, how much would you say, this is out there in a realm, but how much would you say you've learned between, and like kind of looking for percentage here, between work experience, school, and YouTube? What would you say? Is it like 33% YouTube, 70% work? That's 103%, so that math doesn't work. But what would you say has kind of been some of the main factors of your advancement when it comes to just being a creative artist?
Great question. I mean, for me in particular, because I went to a bankrupt college and it was in film, like 10% formal education. Okay, so if that's 10%, that means I have 90 left. Let me think. Then, damn, it's tough because I had like so many of the fundamentals and the foundations was YouTube school. But a lot of like the way I am applying those tools and like how to be creative with like stacking effects or like, smart ways of like using nulls and all that stuff, I learned from my peers. So what's 90 divided by 2?
45 and 45.
45.
That's a good
Nice.
That's a good pie chart right there. So
Yeah.
45%, 45%, and 10%. Okay, cool. So Dash Bash. I mean, man, so many cool things there. Doing a conference. I know there's another one coming up, as we said before. Just overall being at Dash. So you joined in which year? I know you said you were in COVID. You made a transition from the heat. Then you did 2 years of freelance. To be about 3 years ago, you joined Dash Bash.
No, I mean, well, Dash. The event
Dash
is Dash Bash.
Sorry.
But
Right.
I started about, I would say almost 2 years now.
2 years. Okay. Being there for 2 years, what's been one of your favorite parts or projects that you've worked on?
One of my favorite parts of projects. I guess just learning from everyone else. Also, I will say, like, in between Miami Heat and the TV station I worked at a production studio that they brought me on as junior art director, which essentially meant I was the animation department. It was like a 7-person team. It was a production studio where they did a lot of like filming. And I had just been doing their animations on the side as a freelancer for so long. They just brought me in full time. and I was the animation department. And that experience, I was only there for a year. They're awesome, super talented people, but I was not surrounded by a team of people, of other animators or other people that are like do similar things to what I do. So I was like not ready to stop learning in a sense. And I was like, damn, I don't want to just be here by myself, not learning from anyone, not collaborating from anyone. I still felt like I had a lot to learn about like workflow too, of like style frames and then animation, animatic. I just felt like I had a lot of growth to do and wanted to be on a team again. So then now fast forward, one of the best things about being on Dash is working with all these like talented, super talented people that I just get to like learn with and like ask questions. The remote aspect, I mean, definitely I miss sitting in an office and then just taking a lap around everyone's desk and being like, "Ooh, that's dope. How'd you do that?" Like, and then sitting next to them. So I definitely have tried to like bug people a little bit more and like use Huddle on Slack, some people, I don't know if it's annoying, but I love doing that. And I'm like, hey, can we talk about that project? I saw that you use this, like, can you show me the stacks or whatever of effects? So definitely learning from people. And also another thing is that Mac has kind of given me some opportunities to go to more events. Like I wasn't supposed to go to Camp MoGraph, but he couldn't go, so he sent me, and then that just like was a emotion awakening, which was amazing. And then after that, he was speaking in Ringling last year, and Marin, our producer, couldn't go because they were going to do a joint talk, and she couldn't go last minute. She got sick, and since I was in Florida, he was like, "Oh, Steph, you want to come up?" So I did, and then because of that, he also had me go this year by myself to talk. So definitely opening that segue to do more like networking, presentations, talks, and stuff like that. I really love that. I never would have imagined pursuing that side of things too. So that's definitely like another like aspect of motion that Dash has really like opened me up to that I've been really enjoying.
That's amazing. I did want to jump into the Dash Bash side of things. So I was lucky enough to go to Dash Bash last summer. This year looks like we got like a slightly different set of programming. You got like a workshop day. I pulled Mac for a quick second. Like last night we were there just to like really just sing his praises on like, I lived in North Carolina for like 7 years. So I'm very nostalgic, not nostalgic, but it's near and dear to my heart. But all that said, one of the things I think that's really interesting at Dash Bash this year is this demo duel, which I feel like kind of plays in a little bit to some of what you're talking about sharing yourself, sharing your personality, sharing who you are. Can you just share a little bit about Dash Bash's demo duel at this year's Dash Bash and what it's all about?
Yeah, so super exciting that we're doing that. And we actually are getting the software, like the programming to do that. We're getting that from Ringling. So Ringling, they do this for their seniors every year. And it's like this huge event. I actually got to witness it this year. It was amazing. But basically what it is, and the same way it'll be at Dash Bash, Demo Duel is... we had a bunch of people, and I think there's still submissions open, but we're having a bunch of people submit their reels, and our judges are narrowing it down to 16 finalists. And those 16 finalists are going to be showing their reels at the actual Dash Bash during Demo Duel, and it's going to be like a bracket style competition. So it's, speaking of NBA, it's kind of like the finals or whatever. And it's basically like this giant screen, and you see the bracket, and then it like randomizes like who ends up on all the slots. And it's like the first to battle it out. They show one reel, then they show the other reel, and then on your phone there's like an app. No, I don't think it's an app. It's like something you scan and it opens up a web page. And as soon as the two reels play, and it's like, all right, now everyone vote. You have like 30 seconds or whatever. You either pick A or B. And then it goes on to the next one. It'll go to the other side, and then two on the other side. You vote again, and then it narrows it down and goes to the next. So this year was the first time that I actually got to see it live. The energy and like everyone rooting for each other and everyone, and it doesn't get too repetitive because all the reels are like 30 seconds. And then like, let's say you watch like the first tier and like you have like your 3 favorites, whatever, and it narrows it down to the next one. And all of a sudden like 2 of your favorites are like, battling and you're like, oh, which one do I vote for? And just like, oh, it was awesome. Awesome. And just the fact that, I mean, I've been to a lot of like events and networking things. I feel like adding the demo duel to Dash Bash this year is like adding some engagement. So it's not just like you're showing up to this event. Like, of course you're mingling and you're networking, but you're not just watching talks. Now we have like this engagement that it's like, involving the audience, it's meeting other people. And then on top of that, plus the workshops, I feel like we've really elevated it. So it's not just an event that you're going to just see talks. You also have the demo duel. You're also getting your hands on with the workshop stuff. So, but yeah, demo duel, I'm super pumped for. It's gonna be awesome.
That's amazing. I mean, I was gonna ask, what are you most excited about for this year's Dash Bash? But I think we've pretty much answered that.
Absolutely.
So, and also, could you maybe give even just a little bit? Just a little bit of an overview. I'm not sure, just maybe about Dash Bash. Maybe what it's like going to the conference for somebody who's interested in going for the first time and maybe doesn't know what to expect.
Yeah, so the Dash Bash is really cool because it's just an event for motion designers. I mean, of course, there's also producers going and, graphic designers and stuff, but it's just like all these people in this more niche industry that are going to be together, which is a little bit different from like NAB and stuff like that. And it's also very like welcoming. Everyone's there to get to know each other, to like share work, to just talk motion, have fun. And I think the way Dash, like Mac and Corey really tried to build it is to just like make friends, don't think about it too like networky or businessy. It's like, let's all mingle, let's all become friends, let's all share our work, let's all collaborate. So it's definitely more of a welcoming vibe than a corporate vibe or big, what's it called? These like giant networking events. I feel like it's the perfect in between like Camp MoGraph and like NAB. And this is like somewhere in the middle,
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's such a good take because one of the things that I was so like taken aback by when I went was you watch these incredible presentations and then everyone goes out to lunch at like lunch break in the middle of the day. And like, you're like, like Sakani Solomon is like at the table next to me. I'm, you're able to like talk to whoever is like, it is everyone is on an even playing field, regardless of who's presenting, probably who's winning the demo duel. Like it's just, the level playing field I think is so important because I mean, to your point, Steph, it's like if you go to one of these larger events, like in NAB, for example, it's like, it's so overwhelming. There is so much to absorb and take in. What was the attendance last year? I feel like 300 maybe.
Actually, I think it was maybe around like 180 to 200. It wasn't that much. Now
okay,
it's gone
so it wasn't
up.
even. Okay, yeah. So, but like an intimate group, like intimate enough that you can pretty much over the course of a weekend, you could, theoretically meet most of the people that go to the conference, including the speakers, which I think is really awesome. One thing I wanted to kind of follow up on, about the demo duel and sort of this idea of sharing your work. What are the biggest benefits for, in your opinion, what are the biggest benefits for creatives who participate in challenges like this?
Well, definitely getting your name out there, period. I feel like even me, I struggle with this still, is to like post things on social and build up my presence online. And it's like, okay, well, if something like this just falls into your lap where it's like this event is doing this, competition to submit a reel, you don't have to do, it's like the perfect reason to finally put your foot in the door and put your work out there. And get a bunch of people to see it. Also, perfect excuse that if you make it to the finals, you go to Dash Bash to see it on this giant screen, have a bunch of people like recognize your work after, like, oh, are you Steph Hallett? Your reel was so good, and yeah, also just get past that initial like self fear of like putting your work out there, especially if you're just getting started in the industry. I know I struggled with like just posting my stuff because I was like, it's not perfect enough. This is the perfect excuse to put yourself out there.
Nice. I love that.
That's awesome. And what are the dates for Dash Bash?
So on June 11th is when we're having the optional or additional workshops. So it's a day of 4 workshops, and it's in stop motion, audio, creative portfolio, and projection mapping. And
Oh,
then, yeah, and then there's an after party too. And then that's on Wednesday. Thursday, the 12th and the 13th are the speakers, and Friday is going to be the big demo duel. And then there's an after party after that. So June 11th to June 13th.
Which
and this
I have to call this out. Wesley Slover is doing from Sanctus is doing the audio portion, right? Is that I get that wrong?
I'm not totally sure. I'd have to double check.
We just
Wait, I
we
haven't.
just talked to him recently, so I was like, I thought I saw it, maybe I didn't. I also met Wesley at Dash Bash, so
Oh yeah, it is. It's Trevor Richardson and Wesley Slover.
yep. Yeah, so I mean, no, it's amazing. It's like you're incorporating so many different elements, from like I remember I'm gonna blank the sound Foley session from last year's Dash Bash was
Oh my
like
gosh!
incredible.
Yeah.
Like doing live Foley on stage in front of everyone. If you didn't know what Foley was before, you certainly knew after. And I think everyone left that session being like, I want to go and figure out how to like do sound effects for my own animations. It was incredible. So I
Yeah.
think, Dash Bash is just doing an amazing job of really kind of covering all of the topics and also making it very inclusive to, just motion design in general.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, it's really similar to how Mac and Corey run the studio, but what they're doing with Dash Bash is that they're always trying to evolve and grow, and like, how can we make it better? What can we add? How can we make it more engaging? And even like when I came back from Camp MoGraph, I was like, guys, there's stuff we need to pull from Camp MoGraph and bring it here, like whether it be the energy, the ethos, like the manifesto, like and they always want to like make things better, and make things better for the community and the people going and everyone involved and make it feel inclusive. So that's definitely like that's definitely who they are, and they bring it to our studio but also to Dash Bash. So I can't even imagine what the future is going to be if this year we're adding workshops and demo duels already.
How many Dash Bashes have there been? There's only been a
3.
handful, right? 3? Yeah. Amazing.
well,
Amazing to be able to accomplish that much in such a short period of time.
Yeah.
This might be my last question on Dash Bash, but what would be your number one tip for somebody who's like, man, I'm listening. This sounds amazing. I think I'm going to go. What's maybe an unexpected thing that you could shed light on for them? Either like something to bring, maybe, or
In terms of like
tip.
attending.
I guess I'm just looking for. I'm more asking for myself because I'm planning on going this year. So I'm like thinking, what's like a great tip? I know like if you go to Bonnaroo, it's like, oh man, you're gonna chafe, so you got to get baby powder, or you're gonna want to have a camel backpack, man. Like, don't just have a jug. I don't know if there's. I'm just saying, I don't know. But if there's anything,
like what would be what's your number one tip for a first time attendee of Dash Bash?
That's a much more elegant way to ask the question. Thank you.
Let me think. Well, I mean, also this is another thing at Camp MoGraph when people had the stickers. I think having something for people to remember you, especially if it's like a really cool design sticker. I just feel like maybe this is an unpopular opinion, but I don't even know where all the business cards I get are. So bring like something memorable, like a cool sticker, and also trying to think of how to word it. Even if you're like an introvert, put yourself out there, like put on, like expect to like just talk to people, and maybe, someone else breaks the ice for you, but definitely come with like this open, welcoming attitude of just like wanting to meet people, wanting to have conversations. Expect that you'll go up to random people and introduce yourself just to like talk and break the ice. And I definitely think creating that same culture of like just going up to one another and being welcoming and open, definitely want to bring that attitude.
Yeah, love it. Now I remember at Camp MoGraph, I don't even know his name, but I held onto his business card. But he had like a Polaroid was his business card. And
Oh
I
yeah,
just,
that's
do you have your suit? Yeah, it was so funny. I was
A
like, and it was just so.
Polaroid?
Ryan. It's Ryan. Shit, what is his last name? Fuck.
Yeah, I can't.
Cut this
Yeah.
out. Don't put this in.
No, I mean, okay, compared to how many other people, though, I mean, talk about it was just cool to have something that was that creative to bring. And, I still hold on to that because I agree with every other business card. I mean, as soon as my wallet starts feeling heavy, I'm just like trash,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, maybe a business card at like NAB and stuff like that. But like at this where it's like fellow creatives and stuff, I'm like, bring your stickers. People will put them on like their computers. People will remember you and also remember like your personality and your brand from whatever cool sticker you brought, I just think for Dash Bash specifically, that could be something cool.
I not to like, for whatever it's worth, the best piece of advice that I got at Dash Bash was to have lunch with a different group of people every day. Because it's so easy to sort of like fall in like, oh, you introduce yourself once, you're like, great, I got over the social anxiety, I met some cool people. I think that's how to bring it back to Wesley again at Sanctus, I think that's how I met Wesley was that, the Mothers of MoGraph crew, it's like I made it a point after someone said that to me. I was like, I'm gonna just find a group of people at lunch break when everyone's sort of walking out of the sessions going, I'm like, hey, what's up, what are you guys doing, can I eat lunch with you? And of course everyone's like, absolutely, come on out. Like it's so much about getting over, for me, and I think probably a lot of people might feel the same way, it's so much about just getting over yourself a little bit and putting yourself out there. And if there's a place that you can do things that you might be uncomfortable with and have them be accepted and reciprocated, it's probably Dash Bash.
That's the best advice. That's the best advice, especially because
I can't remember who told me that, but
best advice, especially because I was a little bit shy. I had just started at Dash maybe like 2 months before I went to Dash Bash, and I definitely could have used that advice, but I got lucky that like a couple of different people like came up to me and my friend and did exactly what you just said. It was during lunch break. I'm forgetting his name right now, but it was during lunch break and he was just like, hey, where are you guys headed? Can I go with you? And we're like, yeah, great. And I'm like, damn, that was so bold, brave. But I was like, I also thought about it. I'm like, this is the one place that like, you are not going to get a response. Like, what? Everyone is going to be like, yeah, we're going this way. You want to come? Like, you just like nailed it.
Yeah. Well, it also helps. It's such a good vibe, like downtown Raleigh, like that, where it's like everything's walkable. It's not as overwhelming. Like we're in New York, so it's it's like it can be a little overwhelming. Like subway system, like everything there is like you have an hour. You can go somewhere different every day. It's really. I'm excited for Dash Bash. If you can't tell.
I'm so excited.
Let's see. Moving on from the Dash Bash stuff, because I think there are other things we want to talk about. I guess let's jump into sort of like your perspectives on the future of motion design. You've been doing this a while. You've had a successful career. You're established. Let's kind of talk about what's coming next, not just for you, but for the industry in general. This is a very broad topic. But what do you think the future of motion design looks like over the next 3 to 5 years? What are the things that new motion designers should be focusing on? What are the things that current motion designers should maybe considering picking up? Just where do you think it's all going?
It's tough, but I do think like interactive animations are really it's not just gonna be like its own little subgenre. I think people are adding animations to like, when you pay for something with your phone, that little like loading animation or the little emojis coming out on the Zoom call, or like tiny little things of like where you don't think that people want to use animations. Apps now, like everything has an app. All those things need animation. So I definitely think that's going to be a big thing. Yeah, it won't just be like just still videos or little ads. It'll just be more interactive animations. But yeah, aside from that, I mean, I know another topic we wanted to talk about was AR and VR. The only thing I'm just like, I feel like AR and VR was ahead of its time oh gosh, this might be unpopular opinion, but I actually saw this in a clip one time,
Say
and this
it.
guy, it was AR and VR was ahead of its time, kind of in a bad way, in the sense that it's just like something that you would see in like sci-fi or whatever, that it was like they just wanted to like jump the gun and create this thing that like we think the future looks like, like especially with like
Mm,
AR. And they came out, with VR headsets that isn't exactly there yet. It's not at a place that makes it so user friendly that most people will have one and buy one and interact with it. Like, I think some guy said that like Steve Jobs was designing not based on what he thinks future tech should look like, but more what was like the current demand for things. So I don't know. I just feel like I'm a big VR person. My Oculus is right there. I used to break out from how much I would sweat in Beat Saber. Um, but I just feel like for people who aren't into tech and stuff like that, like it just hasn't gotten there. Like even the Google or the Apple glasses and stuff, it's just still the people who are into technology and a certain like group of people. When like, for example, a good example of something coming out during demand and at the right timing is AI chat, like ChatGPT. The fact that my parents use ChatGPT and that this skyrocketed within a year, like people were using it already like 2 years ago, like finding out about it. But within like even like the last couple of months, everyone is using ChatGPT because it's just at this place that makes it really easy for people to use, really easy for people to access, really easy to fit into like your daily routine, really easy for someone who isn't a tech person to be able to adopt it and use it. And that's just something that I feel like that came out at a time when it was in demand, when it was easily going to take off. I feel like VR and AR, it's just not there yet, that it's going to be a universal thing yet. So it's like, I don't even know how to say like people would be applying it now, because I don't know, it's not part of like a very easy access kind of thing. It's like you're
mhm.
just using VR in your creative process, maybe to explore that, or to be using this new technology, not because it's detrimental to the project. So if that makes sense. I
Right.
don't know if I explained
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
No, it's
100%.
like there's not necessarily any practical use cases, Like you're seeing people slowly start to develop apps where it's actually enhancing their work. Like I saw, and maybe I don't know anything about spray painting. Maybe this is tacky, but like I've seen people doing like wall murals where they're just very quickly putting on their headset and then they superimpose the image on a wall and they can just very quickly sketch it out
Yeah.
on a wall, just doing some tracing. I've seen like construction workers where they're doing stuff like, they can kind of look at floor plans that have like a lot of data there that's like kind of more in the construction business, but yeah, it's for the day to day use case. Definitely not a massive thing, but I will say, speaking of Apple, not Tim Cook. Yeah, it is Tim Cook.
Tim
Uh,
Apple.
Tim Apple, yes, Mr. Apple. He said that he is, or somebody announced that he has reportedly said he is absolutely 100% hell bent on making sure Apple releases an AR glasses before Meta, which is that is a hell of a challenge because Meta is pretty close because they've already shown their entire prototype. So I'm curious to see where it goes. But again, it's kind of like who's going to wear the glasses? When are we going to wear the glasses? Like if we're doing this interview, are we going to be wearing glasses? I don't think so. So it's
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
I mean, yeah, to Steph's point, it's like it's a form factor thing. ChatGPT fits into the daily routine of people picking up their phone. It's like texting. It's like messaging someone you know. It's the functionality is familiar. The hardware is familiar. It's
Yeah.
so much easier. The barrier to entry is downloading the app as opposed to AR less so, VR way more so. The barrier to entry is, do you have, I don't know, $500 to spend on a headset and the technical know-how to plug it into your computer, download apps, yada yada yada.
I do.
Yeah.
I
No, you're
definitely
good.
don't think that as soon as it becomes the glasses come out, it is going to be the hottest item in the world. Like, I know I've already said to Andrew, I think vertical video is going to finally be dead. I don't think anyone's going to be recording in vertical video with AR and VR anymore. I also, though, I think, I had something I wanted to say. I think for motion design, though, like you're saying, there's Lottie files that people make in After Effects for UXI. I remember, Nina, when we were watching TV, we pressed pause on our Samsung TV and it went bleep. And she went, I did that. Like, did what? She was like, that little bloop right there on Samsung. That was me. It's like, wow, awesome. But I think with VR and AR, when it takes off, it's going to be just, there's not going to be enough motion designers and 3D animators to cover the demand when it comes out. And it's like funny enough, like the animations for UXI really are so simplistic that it's like, they have vibe coding. It's almost like vibe animating, right? It's like what feels like good, like when I click something or I feel something or I move something.
A perfect example is like when you share contacts with the iPhone. I was like, wow, what a way to get a feeling in an animation.
And also perceived latency. So like that, everything you guys are describing is like, that is in service of making a user feel like you are waiting for something to happen, because on the back end, from a technical standpoint, there is time that has to pass. And so it's like, how do you fill those gaps in a way that don't make you feel like you're in 1999 on a dial-up connection waiting for a web page to load. So yeah, I mean, it's crazy because, 10 years ago, we probably wouldn't have been talking about this stuff, and it's in that sense, talking about the future of motion design and animation. I think, Steph, you mentioned, interactive design, UX, UI, there are so many opportunities now that, I think it's hard to keep up with, all the ways that you could be a motion designer professionally. It's no longer just making a 16:9 ad that's going to play on YouTube for 15 seconds. There's a lot of really awesome potential ahead. We have 5 minutes, so I wanted to jump to a quick little lightning round thing because I do want to get your thoughts on this. Steph, what is one unexpected lesson that you've learned in your career that still surprises you?
So one unexpected lesson, I mean, once I learned it, it doesn't surprise me too much, but it surprised me at the time, was how much value of being a good, kind person it is to go far in this industry. I kept thinking I have to have the coolest portfolio. I have to have the best work. I got to up my 3D game. I got to be, all these like technical craft skills. And then I realized, A, from working with other people, and also B, from people who hired me, who later on told me like, being a good vibe, a good person, professional, respectful, kind, enthusiastic, and just your general attitude that you bring to work day to day is so much more impactful than your talent, because you can have your crafts and like maybe, there's someone else that has like really sick work and all this stuff, but I don't know, they just want to be like in and out, minimal interaction. Maybe they never have their camera on, like the little things of like having your personality and having a good attitude and being positive and being excited to show up for work. Maybe not every day. You don't have to be the most, everyone has their days, but like how much attitude matters in finding work. And even as a freelancer, you work on a project and, during that project, I'll always be like, oh man, I saw your thing. Cool work. Or like maybe side message, like another motion designer. And like next time they're looking for another for a freelancer for another project, they'll be like, damn, Stephanie was so cool and nice. Like, let's bring her back. And it surprised me how much personality and attitude matters in any industry. But
I love that. I didn't know there was a perfect answer, but I think that might be it. Because like we've talked about, you can have the most technical skill, and honestly, it's not hard to find technical skill right now, right? Like there are so many talented people on social media. It's getting increasingly hard to differentiate yourself that way. So I love the idea of making your personality and just being like a good human being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In 60 seconds or less, what trends do you see entering the motion graphics field this year?
I don't know. What trends do I see entering the motion graphics? Well, I feel
Loaded.
like it's the same answer, like Rive, Lottie, interactive. Um, I even see it like on a lot of people's websites. Maybe it's like, yeah, just like that. Maybe it's going to transfer from stuff that you just watch to stuff like on websites that you're interacting with. Yeah. Yeah. Am I
No,
60
that's great.
seconds done?
Yeah, no, perfect
Amazing.
timing. Perfect timing. Yeah, I've been seeing huge, big block letters. Keep an eye. I don't know if that's a trend or not. We'll see. But I don't know if you guys saw Substance. That they started using that, and a few other things.
Have not watched it yet.
Yeah,
Oh,
Andrew, I'll
like
let
the
you ask.
titles?
Yeah, like almost looks like block letters. Like I keep seeing it more and more. It's like just very impactful. It's almost like impact, but times two. It's just like a really bold kind of font. Always just dual color. But and I keep seeing it. I'm like, oh, that really does stand out. I'll have to. I don't know. I've been putting it in my mood boards recently. So, Andrew, I'll let you ask the last speed question. If
What do we got? I feel like we got it.
okay.
VR, AR, we talked about 3D. Yeah, three. I mean, yeah, I think we got it.
Oh, well, I know. Sorry. I read
Unless,
like all
yeah,
the
unless
questions
you have
and I
something.
answered them before.
This is where we open the floor. If there's anything that we didn't cover, topics that you wanted to talk about, things you're excited about that we somehow missed, let us know and we can prompt that.
Well, I was just gonna say AI, even though I know.
Oh yes. Oh my god, we
Yes.
didn't. Okay, yes, we didn't talk about AI. That is the one we did not talk about. Well, you mentioned ChatGPT, but
We'll keep
perfect.
it slightly positive on this one. I feel like it always goes into a doomsday stuff, but I am
Okay.
very excited to hear your viewpoint, Steph. I mean, again, because a lot of people we talk to have a much more 3D background, whereas you have a very heavy into After Effects, just phenomenal illustrative look and design and feel. So, yeah, what is your thoughts on AI?
I feel like I've said unpopular opinion so many times, but I'm not fearful of AI. I'm not like, oh, I think I'm not completely embracing it, but I definitely think cat's out of the bag. It's not going to go back in. Might as well use it to your advantage. Um, I also think like maybe this is a terrible comparison or it's very exaggerated, but like the way I think about it is like in the industrial period when people were like, oh, machines are going to replace like we do all these things by hand, machines are going to replace us. There's going to be no job. But then we just like adapt. Like everything adapts, and like these other jobs that we would have never thought of came up, like the people who build the machines, the people who control the machines. Then, even like, I don't know, 5 or 10 years ago, we would have never thought that influencer would be a job, like a full-time job, you know? And so as like technology advances, like certain things close, but then like all these, like we can't even fathom the new opportunities that are going to come after AI starts to replace like the tedious ones. Like at least generative fill and stuff like that in Photoshop, like I use it all the
Yes.
time.
All the time.
Before you would like, let's say you would do like a slow scale on like a photo, but you're like, oh, it like crops like here and there's nothing else you can like scale out of. Now you just the canvas and you just put generative expand, boom, you can scale forever. I just find it like everything. Oh, this one I kind of feel guilty about, but I've been using AI a lot for expressions.
Oh
And
yeah.
Ooh, oh, really?
all the time. I'm like, I want to, and like, what's something that I would always look for, because I'm not like super into expressions, but I'd be like, oh yeah, I want to put a wiggle on the scale, but I want to make sure like the dimensions are locked. Every single time I would always forget and I have to look up the expression, because if not, it wiggles in the Y and the whatever. Now I just put into
Right.
ChatGPT, it spits it out for me. And then if I put it in and
Wow.
I'm like, oh, can it be a slow organic wiggle, kind of like the movement in this website? And I'll send like a website link to like a background that's moving like this, and be like, oh yeah, and update the expression so it's like a slow organic, and then I'm like, but can it loop in 45 seconds? And then I'll update the code. So it's like,
Yeah.
you know, that so much time that I would have spent, like, I mean, I feel bad, but I would have spent hours on Creative Cow or like whatever those other websites were. And like, not only that, you find the expression, but you don't, now you have to spend some time figuring it out, how to apply it specifically to your use case. The only reason I feel guilty about that is because before I would kind of have to learn about expressions in figuring out how to apply it. Now I could just have it like spit out. But now I'm focusing on other things. Now, because I didn't spend like half an hour figuring out that expression, I am working on like the composition more, or like thinking about the transition of
Mm.
how it's going to go into the next shot. And I'm not rushing to figure that out because I didn't have to waste all this time on some technical thing, you know? That's the way I
Yeah.
see it.
I love it. I think some of the best use cases right now are like, you can literally take the expression language reference PDF from Adobe, put it into a custom GPT, and then query, like, rather than reading 400 pages of a document, you upload the PDF and you say, hey, I got to figure out how to do this one thing. Can you just like scan, that is, to me, I think, a pretty obvious use case of like, you're saving time. You're not necessarily, I think there's like this moral conundrum of like how much of generative AI is taking advantage of other people's IP, which in certain cases it obviously is. In a situation like that, it's sort of like, look, it's basically just reading a documentation for me. Would I sit down and do it myself? Yeah, but like I don't really want to your point, because I got to focus on like composition and color correction and just figuring out creative ways to do storytelling. Like that those are the things that I think become increasingly more important, and it is nice to have more time to focus on them because we have tools that can do the other things for us.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I also want to say I had my first less soulless experience using AI just last night. I think it was the first time, and I'm not like 100% like this is for me completely, but I made an image. I was just live streaming on TikTok first time. It was kind of fun. And I just kind of was taking requests, and I made this astronaut being chased by aliens on Mars. And it came out all right. It was fun, but I feel like the things, especially I like doing dailies, to get it so polished, just to even do the ground texture can take a whole day, right? And to get some of the extra elements on the astronaut, the dirt, the dust, all of these things, and then to do the coloring, I had the general idea, which was really fun, of these aliens chasing this astronaut. And I just kind of put it into ChatGPT and I just said the prompt, make it cinematic. And it literally made the image look so good. And it held all of the weights of exactly where the aliens were, exact same position as the astronaut. And I don't know, I just thought that was a pretty interesting use case. And I was like, oh, this is like almost identical to what I made, except it just added all those details that would have taken me forever to put in. And I don't know, I felt good about that. And I was like, oh, I feel like a lot of
Yeah.
times I use AI and I just get like, oh, it's taking my job. But
Yeah.
I felt like that one, it enhanced what I was wanting to do. Which was,
Exactly.
yeah. So I'm hoping there's more things like that, that just keep coming out. Like I was even thinking too, like if I was able to animate the astronaut and it was able to keep that frame, and like almost the AI just kept making images based off of my video. And so anyway, just positive note, I had to share that. Yesterday was a good day for me in the AI world, and that's one out of a million. So but yeah, well, I think that's it pretty much for our questions. Is there anything else that we might have missed, or anything else you might want to go over, Steph?
Not that I can think of, except, I really would love to get the word out there about Dash Bash so I could see more fellow motion faces. I think one of my favorite things is being able to just hang out with motion people, especially because I'm remote. So I crave it. I seek it. I love it.
Awesome. Well, that being said, where can people find more information on Dash Bash, and where can people find more information on you?
For the Dash Bash, it's www.dashbash.net. We have all the information there, dates, workshops, speakers, super exciting. And then Dash Studio is, I'm pretty sure, dashstudio.com? Dashstudio.net. Dashstudio.net. You can check out more stuff. And Hallet.org is my personal one. And that's about it.
Amazing. Well, Steph, thanks so much for coming on. Amazing to see you again, especially since it's been since Camp MoGraph. It was awesome catching up. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me, guys.